precious hearts. Welcome to episode 2. And the last show we did was for the lonely hearts. And this show is actually going to be for the broken hearts. Because today we are going to learn if you are in love with a real human being or a vampire. If you have ever been so heartbroken that you feel like roadkill, if you have ever felt discarded like last week's meatloaf, if you have ever been hurt so badly that you are literally beside yourself, if you've ever been so broken you feel like an empty shell, if someone has ever made you feel like you wish you were dead or undead, then stay tuned, dear ones, because I'm going to put the They Live sunglasses on you so you can come back from the underworld and start to recover from your heartache. So there is a reason that the millennials are being conditioned to be attracted to demons and vampires. And from Anne Rice to Buffy the Vampire Slayer to Twilight to True Blood to 50 Shades of Grey, the list is infinite. It's no accident that there is an entire section in the bookstore called Teen Paranormal Romance. And this is all part of a conspiracy to condition young people to give themselves over to evil and set them up for a miserable, godless, and joyless life. There is a label going around occult circles for people who do not actually drink blood, but they will, knowingly or not, drain you of your life force. And they are called psychic vampires. And while this term might bring to mind humorous thoughts of Dracula telling your fortune with a crystal ball, these people are very real and very dangerous. And psychology has classified them in a quantifiable way based on their pathological and predictable behavior patterns. And these are people with narcissistic personality disorder. And they are growing by leaps and bounds. And the term narcissism originated from the Greek mythology, where young Narcissus fell in love with his own image and not his true self, reflected in a pool of water. And he was proud, but he hated the people that loved him, and he was unable to leave the beauty of his reflection. So Narcissus lost his will to live, and he stared at himself until he died. Now, the way that the modern dating game is set up is to encourage narcissism and destroy families. And where before we had men and women courting each other to find lasting love and security, we now have this prolonged adolescence and false sense of independence, and we have Netflix and chill, right? So there's no commitment, no fidelity, no love, and just apathy and a competition to try and be the one who cares the least in the relationship to avoid a heartbreak and a disappointment. And it's almost as if the one who can be the most detached in the relationship is the winner, right? So the first time I ever started to look into these kinds of people was when I was doing research for Weird Stuff Part 2 and Princess Programming, which I now realize should be subtitled How to Raise a Narcissist Jezebel. And so narcissists, they fall on a spectrum, from 1 being your typical insensitive jerk to 10 being pure evil with skin on, just like a vampire. So one estimate is that as much as 16% of the population could exhibit these traits, with men being the majority of the people with this disorder, but women have it too, and sometimes to a much more higher degree. And in the second segment, I'm going to lay out the phases of a relationship with a narcissist so you can determine whether or not you have this type of person in your life. And we all know when we've met someone who we would call an egomaniac or a douchebag, but the problem is much deeper and covert than just an unhealthy sense of vanity. It's actually a psychological condition brought about by trauma in the childhood, just like trauma-based mind control. And a narcissist is actually extremely insecure, and they hate themselves, and they will do anything to keep other people from seeing who they actually are. And on the outside, they can be extremely charming, intelligent, and charismatic. They can be the life of the party and have everyone thinking what a wonderful person they are, as long as the attention is focused on them. And once the spotlight is shown somewhere else, they will lose interest. But before we get to the real vampires, let's read our first letter. And this one is from Lady Cat Crow. And she says, "Dear Jamie, my family doesn't like my boyfriend at all. They think he's not good enough for me, not a man, and unable to take care of a potential family. They think he brainwashed me because at the time we reconnected, we both woke up and started a crazy raw food diet, and my parents thought he was forcing me to do things. They were never interested in getting to know him. They were very critical and judgmental. Although I'm sure they just wanted the best for me, they didn't want to believe that I was happy with him. As soon as they saw me changing my diet drastically with him to raw veganism, they thought it was him forcing me to be this way. They hated him. This, I would say, was all at the same time as waking up. Also, he was out of work for a while because of an injury that made it hard for him to be mobile. They thought he was also using me. He is caring, attentive, and sweet. He loves to help others and fix things, and he always compliments, hugs, and kisses me, always shows love when he can. He is creative and always finding ways to make money. He wants to provide for me, and he wants to marry me and have a family and care for his family. He's smart and very funny. We get along very well, like little kids most of the time. He loves animals and loves to live a healthy lifestyle. He just comes off as wrong, especially to my parents who are not American. How do I fix this perception of him and get my parents to like him?" Okay. Dear Lady Cat, it's kind of a cliche that parents who really love their children, no mate will ever be good enough for them in their eyes. But this can create a lot of tension and hurt feelings if the person you have chosen to love and who generally loves you back is not being integrated into your larger family unit. And my pop culture reference for this kind of relationship is from one of my favorite shows, Downton Abbey, where the daughter of a wealthy family falls for the chauffeur and elopes with him. And the parents hate him at first, but by the end of the show, he proves to be a wonderful person and a perfect addition to the family. And I hate to say it, but if your parents loathe him, it is partially your fault. And it's your responsibility to correct it. And it's natural for us, especially women, when we get hurt, to go crying to our mothers or our girlfriends for support. And when we get into a fight with our loved ones, we pour out our hearts to them, spilling out all the seemingly horrible things that they said and did to us. When, we want them to validate that he is a jerk so that the loss doesn't hurt so much, right? And this can create a really terrible lopsided perception of your mate. And add to this the fact that you are both on the path to waking up. This can make even the most open-minded parents think that you have both, lost your minds and gone off the deep end of kookiness. So if your parents already think that he's a creep, it's time to stop confiding in them so much about all the negative things if you want to stay together. Now's the time when you need to start really bragging about how wonderful he is, just like you did to me in your letter. How great he actually treats you. And, I never understood why a girl would tell everyone how her boyfriend is an a-hole if she wants her friends and family to accept him. It just makes her look foolish to be with him. It's our job to praise our man and make him feel like a Superman. And he will want to live up to that. So when things are going well in our relationship, we don't feel the need to tell anyone because we don't need that extra emotional support if we're being cherished by our partner, right? But if you want your family to love him, you have to show them how lovable he really is. And when he does something awesome, tell them. If you are feeling happy and loved, make sure they know that he is treating you right. And brag about him, take him over there more often when things are going really well, so you have the opportunity to show them how successful he is. And when you have something great going on for you two, arrange for you guys to have a big family dinner so you can share the joys of your relationship with them, and that will make him feel like more of a part of the family as well. So once they start to be included in your ups, they will hopefully be more understanding and fair when you two are having the hard times. And parents should feel comfortable to encourage commitment and to be able to counsel you both when you inevitably have those rough patches that every couple goes through. They should, love him enough to be impartial and see that he loves you, and when you're hurt, he's hurting too. And treat him like a part of the family. And the more time you all spend as a family on the good days, the more they will start to think of him as such and will come to love him as much as you do. So I wish you all the best in luck and love, and he sounds like a keeper and not a vampire. So good job. So let's now get to the heart of the problem. These real vampires, these narcissists, these walking dead people. And I have another letter here. And this one is from Amanda. And she says, "Dear Jamie, hi. I wanted to make sure that I wrote to you about my problem. I have been married for 5 years now. The last year has been really difficult. We live with my husband's mom since we have been married, and 7 months ago finally got our own place. My issue is that my husband has always been taken care of by his mom. She raised him to replace the dad who died 13 years ago. In the beginning, we needed to live with his mom due to financial difficulties, and I would ask my husband what he wanted to do with his life because I saw talent in him when it came to computers, and would encourage him to go to school while we lived with his mom because once we left, we would have to pay bills and rent. He started to lie to me about going to school. He said he was going and wasn't. I found out when I got a piece of mail saying he was dropped from his classes. It seems like he wouldn't tell me really important stuff, and when I found out by his mom or somebody else or a piece of mail, he would say, "Oh, I forgot, I didn't think it was important," or he didn't even know why he didn't tell me. I would express how I felt, and he would accuse me of bitching and complaining and say, "Well, I'm telling you now." He has always relied on his mother to tell him what to do. He works at the same mundane job for the last 12 years and sleeps all the time. Thinks the only thing he has to do in our marriage is show up once in a while. His mom got really sick and I tried to care for her and tried even harder to get his sisters involved in the care, and the sisters turned against me, refusing to help because we lived in the house, so it was our job to take care of her. I told my husband countless times I was burnt out and we needed to find our own place. Meanwhile, I hired my cousin to watch his mom and started paying off his bills, putting mine on the back burner. The situation escalated and he chose to stay with his mom, and I moved out. We missed one another and I felt lost without him. He ended up moving back in with me, but I felt resentful that he initially chose her. I asked him a series of questions like what he envisioned our future being like, children, etc. He responds with, "I don't know, I'm just trying to make it through the day." At this time, he has started making horrible financial choices and not communicating anything with me. He signed a loan in my name with the bank thinking it would help our financial situation, and I only found out through a letter in the mail saying I was late on making a loan payment. What? He then got a credit card racked up and thought he was doing right by us. I felt betrayed. I asked him to get another job and start paying this stuff off, and he fought me tooth and nail. I gave him timelines to get another job, and he drug his feet thinking it would go away. He still doesn't get it. I catch him in little lies all the time and still thinks it's okay to not communicate. I have sought out a roommate and told him it's time he leaves. He uses an excuse of not feeling well, and he has a doctor's appointment to check his head. I feel guilty, but then I know I deserve better. I'm scared due to the amount of bills I will have without his regular income. What do I do? Amanda. Okay, dear Amanda. This is hard because your husband's codependence on his mother and the lack of motivation would be very disheartening for even the most patient wife. But the thing that alarms me the most, and the reason I included your letter in this episode, is quite frankly the lying. And I'm not saying your husband has this personality disorder, but narcissists always lie. It's like breathing to them. A narcissist would probably pass a polygraph because they have become so adept at lying. And in many cases, they actually believe their own lies. And anyone who's been with a narcissist for any amount of time would be able to say that their partner lies about 80 to 90% of the time. And the only time a narcissist will tell the truth is if they will benefit by doing so. So they even lie about small stuff, like whether or not they fed the dog. And so you say in your letter, you say, I would express how I felt, and he would accuse me of bitching and complaining and say, well, I'm telling you now. Okay, this is red flag number 2. Narcissists do not care about your feelings one bit. Actually, your emotions are a huge annoyance to them because they do not feel empathy. And you're being a drag to them and ruining their fun, and their fantasy world. So, since narcissists, they get bored so quickly, and they suck the life out of people and leave them as an empty carcass, they are always on the hunt for new supply and fresh victims, just like a vampire. So from what I've read, it's not a matter of if a narcissist will cheat on you or leave you. It's just a matter of when. So I encourage you to keep listening to this show and look into the other signs of narcissistic abuse to see if your husband fits this profile. And in most cases, I would encourage you to work out your problems, but you need to have all the facts before you proceed. And another red flag for me, for you, is your finances and his lies about that. A narcissist's relationship with money is complex, and having been deprived of love early on in childhood, he constantly seeks love substitutes. And to them, money is the ultimate love substitute. A self-proclaimed narcissist author named Dr. Sam Vaknin, he says that all the qualities of the narcissist are manifested in their relationship with money and their attitude toward it. And for example, due to his sense of entitlement that all narcissists have, they feel like they are entitled to other people's money and to their credit. And they engage in what they call magical thinking, which leads them to very irresponsible and short-sighted behavior, and they believe they are immune to the results of their behavior. And so they get into debt, they commit financial crimes, they hassle people, including their relatives, and their thoughts are about obtaining more money, and money is always on the narcissist's mind because it's a security. And having abundance of that makes them feel more entitled also and superior to other people, which narcissists love to feel. So my advice to you at this time, since you're already thinking that you deserve better, is to watch him more closely and educate yourself as much as you can on this topic. And trust is the hardest thing to earn, and it's the easiest thing to break. And if he's already been consistently lying to you, I don't know how you can remain with someone who you know for a fact is not honest and with you and communicative and responsive to your emotional needs, So everyone deserves better than that. So you may want to tell him you think a separation is in order, until he can look deep into himself and try to be an honest person and trust that you will still love him when he's being his true self and not the mask of the narcissist, right? So that's what I have for Amanda. I wish you luck, and it can get better. So let's go on to the third third letter here, and this is from Wanda from Denver. And she says, "Dear Jamie, I wanted to tell you about my husband of 19 years. My whole world has been about narcissistic personality disorder since he left and I got the diagnosis. He came in once with me to therapy and the therapist said he is textbook, snake in the grass. He is lying and protect yourself. Long story short, my mom was Mun, for sure my brother. My dad is okay, more like me. So I was primed to marry one. That's how it works. I didn't recognize it as abuse, but towards the end, OMG, he was so mean. He is a covert narc. They treat you so badly you want to kill yourself. I felt it. I would never do it, but I felt it. I was so relieved to get a diagnosis and put a label on it. The best thing I got out of this is this book, Psychopath Free. It explains the whole thing. So helpful. I am the narc survivor poster child now. I tell everyone because I know they are promoting this with the princess programming and housewives on Bravo, making women look crazy. It's really serious. Narcs are killers. The best is knowing how to spot them up front. That is the key, and now I know all about it. Empty flattery, love bombing. I have studied so much about this, and I lived it. I figured you would put it together. I am all about it. I'm a freaking expert now. I feel like I should write about it because even if I can prevent one woman from getting her life ruined, oh man, it's worth it. You would never suspect my husband. I've been wanting to talk to you about this because you know he is Mr. Love and light channeler and can read the Akashic records. He hated that I was learning about Lucifer and all the stuff going on like mind control. But I still believe someone has to face the truth. I don't have the luxury of being able to ignore it. So I think it's damn funny Mr. Love and Light is completely messed up and hates himself and has to put other people down to feel superior. Can't look at himself. I still question who he is really channeling. Here's how it went with a shrink. After I told her about all my husband's behavior, she said, who in your life also rejected you? Had to think about it. My mom did. Then the wheel started turning and I put two together. How I picked my husband because I was used to it. I never would have put that together on my own. I didn't think my husband was like my mom. So she said right now I am a shark bait for narcs. She called me chum. She said narcs will feel like family. They are charismatic and will lure you in, but ultimately they will try to absorb your identity and convince you that you have no value. They will either kill you or get you to kill yourself, so you have to get away. So she said this time I have to pick an emotional nurturer, and that will feel foreign to me, but it's nice to have answers and a roadmap. You have to have no contact with narcs and learn about codependency, the mean sweet cycle, the devaluation and the discard, how they accuse you of something ridiculous in the beginning and to test to see how much abuse you will take. Whatever they accuse you of, they are the ones doing it. My husband told me I had no goals, I'm just an entitled housewife, didn't take care of myself, was on a bad path. I mean the list of put downs right there, it hurt right where it hurts the most, just keep going. I went and threw up twice. It was gross. This was someone I trusted and thought loved me. This was toxic, not love. But come to find out, that's how they really feel about themselves. They project it on you and make it your fault. Then they throw you away like trash. The shrink said I came to the conclusion very quickly that it was never what I thought it was. It was always a lie. He was just using me to advance himself. They will drain you. After I got the diagnosis, every bizarre thing my husband ever did or said started to make sense. It's all about control. Takes about a good 2 years to recover, but then they say you are happier than ever. Well, good job. Well, thank you for this descriptive letter, and I'm sorry that you went through this for such a long time. So let's do that. Let's try to give some people a roadmap and some red flags and warning signs to see if this is happening to them, because some people get their heart broken and then some people get it ripped out by a narcissist and they have no idea that these are two different things you're talking about. You know, breaking up with somebody can be hard, but being discarded by a narcissist makes you feel like you said, like you want to die. So some telltale signs of obvious narcissists include a self-focus, They're always talking about themselves. Problems in sustaining and having long-lasting intimate relationships. Difficulty with empathy and remorse. They're never sorry, and they never know how you feel, nor do they even care how you feel. They have problems distinguishing themselves from others. So if they're in a relationship, you are not a separate person. You are just an extension of them and something to make them look good or make them look bad. And that's what really ticks them off. They have hypersensitivity to any insults, real or imagined. They are vulnerable to shame rather than guilt, meaning that they are only sorry and they only feel bad about things when they get caught, and it makes them look bad. They have a certain kind of body language. They hate people who don't flatter them and admire them. They use other people without considering the cost or what other people have to sacrifice to make them happy. They pretend to be more important than they actually are. They brag all the time, and they claim to be an expert at many things. And like I said before, they have this inability to view the world from other people's perspective. They cannot put themselves in anybody else's shoes, and so they have no empathy. And these traits are just the tip of the iceberg. And so now let's talk a little bit about how the narcissist became one, because it perfectly parallels the vampire mythos. And a narcissist's ability to love has been developmentally arrested in childhood. And they're most likely the victims of one narcissistic parent and one parent who tried to make up for that and spoiled them. So they have this dichotomy going on in their household. And at one point in their life, they probably experienced a physical or emotional abandonment that changed them forever. And in many cases, it was the mother who abandoned them for a time. And for men with narcissism, this has shaped their worldview of women even before puberty, that you cannot trust a woman. And the victim child was forced to care for themselves, put themselves first, prove their worth to themselves and to their narcissistic parent and to the world. And the only way to protect themselves from further abuse, just like in trauma-based mind control with the splitting of the personalities, they had to shut down that part of their brain that has to do with empathy and what other people's needs are, because they're a child and they're not even, supposed to be thinking about that stuff. They're not grown yet, so they are stuck in adolescence. And let's see. They shut down the parts of their brain having to do with intimacy and the trust that, people will be there for you when you need them, even when you're not perfect. And so a vampire's bite will either kill you or turn you into one. And this is what narcissists do to people and to each other. They easily become restless and abusive unless new sources are feeding their self-esteem, because they have no self-worth of their own. They envy what others possess, and they tend to idealize the few people when they, are just needing their narcissistic foods and their own needs. So I hope you enjoyed this first half of the show, and please join me in the second half as we truly start to take off the mask of the narcissist. And I'm going to give you some red flags to look out for to identify and remove these toxic people from your life. And we're going to talk about the 3 phases of the narcissistic relationship called idealization, devalue, and discard. And I will get to be explaining about all the other control tactics they use, such as the silent treatment, the gaslighting, and what's called the flying monkeys. And I wish this was available to anyone and everyone. And if you can't subscribe to my site, I urge you to just type in Narcissist on YouTube and grab some popcorn and get ready to have your mind blown, and hopefully you will be on the path to creating your sanity. So thank you all for listening, and if you got a problem, I'll try and solve it. Please write me at jamiehanshaw@gmail.com or find me on Facebook. I'm always listening, and I'm always looking for new friends and ways to solve all your guys' problems, and so we can all have happy hearts. And thank you for watching.